Number 10. Bellamy thought he was stronger than Luffy because he didn't fight back. One Piece. Bellamy was a man with a decent bounty who resided in Mock Town. He scorned Luffy's dreams of reaching Skypia and attacked him in the bar, misinterpreting his passiveness as weakness and disregarding the threat he posed. After stealing a golden trinket from one of Luffy's friends, the Straw Hat Captain returned to the city and demanded its restoration. Vastly overestimating his own skill and underestimating Luffy's, the villain challenged him to a fight and lost in the first hit. Number 9. Takaheru thought his 2-star uniform was impressive. Kill la Kill. Takaheru was a 2-star uniform student and the president of the boxing club. He was the first of Satsuki's minions to be deployed against Ryuko and possessed an unnaturally high confidence in his abilities. Though his barrage of fists proved formidable and devastating, the hero was able to humiliate him amidst a large crowd and establish herself as a credible threat to Hinoji Academy by doing so. The villain would remain relatively obscure for the remainder of the series, but assisted his school against Raggio during the final battle. Number 8. Yami was disregarded as a novelty despite being the strongest Espada. Bleach. The tattoos on the Espada's bodies were supposed to represent how they ranked in Aizen's order. Though Yami was initially the weakest of the group at number 10, his Resurrection form was supposed to make him the strongest. In spite of this, he was so inconsequential to Kenpachi and Byakuya that they regarded his presence as a nuisance to their own internal conflict and disposed of him off-screen. This bodes poorly for his credibility as a villain given that he could not even capture the full attention of the Shinigami captains. Number 7. Floch overestimates his status in the Jaegerist movement, Attack on Titan. Floch was one of Iran's sycophants and his most ardent enforcer. He was responsible for ordering new recruits to brutalize Sades and helped to detain both Mikasa and Armin. Understandably, his string of successes inflated his hubris and bolstered what confidence the man had in his abilities. However, his arrogance is unfounded. The Jaegerist was only able to achieve the success he did since none anticipated his betrayal, and many of his former comrades, Titan or otherwise, are much stronger than he is. Number 6. Welfin relied on intimidation to get what he wanted. Hunter x Hunter. Welfin was a chimera ant in service to Meruem. His Missile Man ability allowed him to inject gigantic, worm-like appendages into his adversary's skull and gnaw on it from the inside out, a tactic he employed against Icalgo. However, this technique is slow-acting and primarily used to intimidate foes into submission rather than serving as a valuable combat utility. This would culminate in a defeat so severe that Welfin himself would admit the flaw in his powers and his overall ineptitude. Number 5. Bruin's skills are limited by his staff, 7 Deadly Sins. Bruin was a member of the Weird Fangs who was able to turn allies against each other through the illusions of his bell. This gave him enormous confidence in his abilities, though it was critically misplaced. After Elizabeth managed to take the bell from his staff, Meliodas and Diane were no longer affected by his ability. Enraged at how the Holy Knight turned him against his friend, the Dragon Sin defeated his malevolent adversary with a flurry of brutal punches, ignoring his protective armor. Number 4. Haydn bragged about his immortality, but was one of the Akatsuki's weakest members, Naruto. Haydn's immortality and ritual circle may have both served him well in the Akatsuki, though they were his only assets in battle. Consequently, he had no other significant ninjutsu or genjutsu to note, with his taijutsu remaining subpar compared to the series' other shinobi. Despite this, he remained among the organization's most bombastic and prideful individuals, with arrogance only adding to the hatred Shikamaru already felt toward him. Ultimately, his low arsenal of skills resulted in his defeat at Shikamaru's hand. Number 3. Jacon constantly threatened Inuyasha and his allies despite his inability to hurt them. Inuyasha. Jacon was the servant of Lord Sesshomaru and his most vocal sycophant. During interactions with Inuyasha, he would constantly threaten the half-demon with his wrath for the perceived slights against his master. This was in spite of the fact that the creature had no means of fulfilling his threats. His fire staff may have been a moderately useful weapon, though it was demonstrated that his skills were only on par with Shippo's during one of the group's clashes. Subsequently, he is incapable of acting on his many coercive promises. Number 2. Iron's invincible body has obvious and exploitable weaknesses. Fire force. Iron was a member of the White Clad whose ignition ability allowed him to harden his body and become nearly indestructible. Predictably, his resilience fostered a sense of overconfidence that would debilitate him in his battle against Hinawa. His large and encumbered body made him slow, with the fire soldiers handily dodging his sloppy and undisciplined attacks. Anticipating that he could not protect his joints since he would otherwise be immobilized, Hinawa shot at his weak spots and brought the giant to his knees without any injuries to show for the battle. Number 1. Yoshikiskira needed several enhancements to stand a chance against Morio's heroes, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yoshikiskira was easily the weakest JoJo villain to have his own act. Much of his survival was facilitated through sheer chance or the many augmentations he received as the series progressed, such as the convenient abilities of the stand arrow or the clever usage of stray cat. By himself, Kira's deadly queen was easily beaten by Josuke and even Shigechi. He was only able to overcome the latter since he outsmarted him and preyed on his childlike gullibility. The murderer's many failings delegitimize his claim that he always wins when he chooses to fight.